Hi again, everyone. I'm Ben. That's EAB.
I'm always watching.
He's got your best interests at heart. And today, we've got two separate things on tap. First, we'll take the team we just made and find an opponent to play against. Then we'll show you all the things that happen once a game has been found, but before it actually starts. The pregame, if you will. On today's schedule, there are two major types of multiplayer competitions, and we'll show you how to get started with both. Once you've found a game, both teams will have the opportunity to buy inducements. These can help even out an unfair matchup, and I'll show you what they all do. Blood Bowl isn't always played in perfect weather, and we'll take a look at the effects of rain, snow, and so on. Finally, every drive begins with a kickoff, and a random kickoff event. These range from trivial to game-changing, and we'll see how they all work. So let's find ourselves an opponent. We'll need to join a league first. Solo and Eternal are both single-player options, and I'm going to skip them entirely. There's nothing wrong with single-player, though if you're paying attention to these videos, you'll soon find that the AI is no challenge at all. And there are thousands of competitions to choose from, so let's help you find the right one. These break down into two main categories: private leagues and public ladders. Private is a bit of a misnomer, as they're frequently open to anyone. The term just means that they're run by private individuals, and not officially associated with cyanide. These range from small groups of friends playing against each other to giant tournaments with hundreds of people from all corners of the world. Each private league has its own rules and requirements, which of course are not available in-game, and some of the largest don't operate in English, so you'll have to do some digging to find one that's right for you. Most will expect you to play about one game per week. You'll know who your opponent is ahead of time, and you'll have to schedule a time to play. As a beginner, I recommend you consider the Reddit Blood Bowl Rookie League. There's a link below the video. You'll get to play against other people at around your skill level, and they'll set you up with an experienced coach as a mentor. This isn't for everyone, of course, but if you're comfortable learning this way, then the Reddit Rookie League is the place to go. Beyond that, I don't have any strong recommendations for you. You can find various leagues recruiting new players on Twitch, Discord, Reddit, forums, basically wherever you can talk to other people. Leagues come and go, and they change over time, so you'll just have to look for the best ones for you. But what if you just want to play a game right now? Well, what you need are the public ladders. There are two of note, and they're both in the same place: the Cabal Vision Official League. It's the first option in the list. Registering for the league gives us a few choices. The two main ladders are Open and Champs, and you can pick either. Both are free to join, and you can enter as many different teams as you want. The Champion ladder, or the CCL, resets every 6 weeks with all new teams. At the end of the season, there's a playoff for the top-ranked team of each race, plus some wildcards. Open Ladder, or COL, C-O-L, lets you keep your team forever, though the standings do reset every season and there are no playoffs. Champs is more carefully policed. There are admins who will ban you if you get too offensive in chat, or if you go AFK and force your opponent to sit there watching your turn timer tick down. Open is completely unpoliced. All you can do to deal with a bad opponent is mute them, or just concede the game. Concessions are a topic we haven't talked about yet, and one that surprises a lot of new players. We'll talk about ethics and such another day, but for now, remember that in Blood Bowl, you're expected to play games out to the bitter end, even when you have no chance of winning. If you concede more than 5 games across all your teams in one champion ladder season, you'll be banned for the rest of that season. The open ladder has no such restrictions, and you are free to concede whenever you want. So, which should you choose? Well, it may sound like Champs is more serious, and it is where most of the really good coaches spend their time. But in my experience, the overall standard of play isn't that much better, so don't be intimidated. You might be new, but you're here watching me, so you'll probably be fine in Champs. Your CCL results are also taken more seriously by other players. You could win 100 games in a row in Open, and I don't know anybody that would care at all. One nice advantage to Champs is that you have a much better chance to actually play a full game. Your opponent usually won't quit the first time something bad happens to them. Also, the turn timers keep changing right now, but it's usually 2-minute turns in one ladder and 3-minute turns in the other, so you might make your decision based on that. Some people do feel strongly about turn timers, and you might be more comfortable as a new player if you aren't under quite as much time pressure on your turns. In general, I'm going to recommend you stick with the champion ladder, but it's up to you. Open isn't a terrible place to start out, but I think you'll want to move up to Champs sooner rather than later. And finally, you can ignore the Anarchy ladder. It's supposed to be for mixed teams, but nobody really uses it. So just like that, we're in and we can find an opponent, which is usually called spinning. It can take up to 5 minutes to find a match, and sometimes it fails and you'll have to wait another 5, but be patient. Through the magic of video editing, the time just flies by. And here we go. Each team will now get 2 minutes to select inducements. You can also use this time to have a look at your opponent's team, which is not a bad habit to get into. The team with a higher TV picks first, and generally won't be able to get anything, though they can spend money from their bank if they wish. This is called scumming, and some leagues have restrictions on when and how much of your bank you can use on inducements, so make sure you check on this before you start. In this game, my opponent picked first. His team is missing a player, so he'll have a journeyman added to his lineup, bumping his actual team value to 1020 for this game. There really isn't anything for him to take in inducements, and he actually passed so quickly that you might have missed it if you weren't watching closely. The weaker team, me in this case, is given the difference in TV as money to spend. In a ladder, this will usually not be more than a few hundred K, but long-running private leagues can generate some really large TV mismatches. In this match, it's only 40K. And here are our choices. Bloodwiser Babes improve the chance that your KO'd players will wake up. This isn't very impactful, but they're only 50K each, and often you'll find yourself buying 1 or 2 because you have money left over and nothing else you can afford. Extra Team Training gives you another team reroll for 100K. This is rarely worth it, but you might want one occasionally. It's most likely when you're playing as a new team that couldn't afford to start with all the rerolls they needed to. But in this case, there are usually going to be other inducements that you want more. The Wizard is the most powerful and game-changing inducement available. For 150K, you'll get the chance to throw a fireball or a lightning bolt at your opponent's players. Fireball hits a 3x3 area and will knock anyone down on a 4+. Lightning Bolt only hits one player, but it's just a 2+ to work. There are all sorts of ways to use a wizard, and it'll be a topic for a later video. In most cases, if you can afford one, it's probably a solid choice. If your player is caught by the referee doing something shady, like carrying a chainsaw onto the field or kicking a player when he's down or both, he'll be sent off. For 100K, a bribe gives you a chance to convince that referee to overlook your transgressions. They are situationally useful, and usually you know ahead of time if you're likely to need them. The Halfling Master Chef gives you a chance to steal away your opponent's rerolls. At 300K, this is vastly overpriced for its effect. Halflings get a big discount on it, and it's usually not bad for them. But other races will almost never want a chef, unless they're in some enormously unfair mismatch and run out of things to spend their money on. A Wandering Apothecary is another chance to heal an injured player, for 100K. These are pretty nice if you're facing a team with a lot of killing potential. As we've seen, some teams aren't allowed an Apo. These can instead hire an Igor for the same price. Igor lets you reroll a failed regeneration roll. It's generally considered too weak to be worth taking. There are about 50 or 60 unique star players, each with their own skills, stats, and price tag. Most will only play for a few races though, so we'll usually have about 5 or 6 to choose from. If we meet their asking price, they'll join us for the game. Star players are a mixed bag. A few are excellent, but most have weird combinations of skills that aren't always very helpful. Stars all have the loner skill, which means they can't reliably use team rerolls, and you can't heal them with your apothecary either. Finally, a mercenary is a temporary extra player for any position on your team if you don't already have the maximum number allowed of that type. They cost 30K more than their base price, and for another 50K on top, you can give them a normal skill. Mercs all come with loner as well. Mercenaries aren't hired too often, but they do have their uses. One situation is for teams that have a big guy available, but they don't want to hire him. Since big guys generally have loner anyway, there's not as much downside to taking one as a mercenary if you think he'll help in the matchup. A mercenary lineman is sometimes a good idea to give yourself an extra bench player. This is often done to get a cheap player to foul with, and you can even give most linemen the dirty player skill to help with that. Neither of these are particularly common, but they're the kind of ideas to be aware of. Star players and mercenaries can only join your team if there's space for them on your roster. So if you have a full 16-man team already, you won't be able to hire any. With only 40K to spend, I don't really have any options here. I could buy a Bloodwiser Babe by using 10K from my bank, but I'd prefer to save that cash, and with a high armor team like Orcs, I don't feel like I'll really need a Babe anyway. So with inducements all chosen, it's time to go down to the field. It's nice and sunny right now, but that isn't always the case. Bad weather can have a major impact on the game, so let's talk about what might happen. If it's raining, the ball will be wet and slippery and more difficult to pick up or catch. In the snow, players will have trouble with their feet, and they'll need to roll a 3+ on a GFI instead of a 2+. You also won't be able to throw longer passes. Sweltering heat means your players have a chance to pass out from heat exhaustion at the end of a drive. They'll miss the next drive, but be ready to come back after that. Players who aren't on the pitch at the end of the drive are immune. And if it is very sunny, it'll be harder to throw a pass with the sun in your eyes. This one is subtle and it's easy to overlook. The weather icon is a little brighter, there are no clouds in front of the sun, and you can always move your mouse over the weather indicator to see what's currently happening and what the effects are. Let's move on to the pregame coin toss. If you win this, you'll have the choice of starting the game either on offense or defense. There are a lot of factors that go into this, but most are pretty advanced. So for now, I'm going to recommend you just pick offense when you have the choice. Offense gives you the first chance to take some blocks and maybe hurt some players, so it's an okay default choice. It probably won't matter all that much though, so don't worry about it. One good situation to pick defense first is if you see that it's raining. Offense is harder in bad weather, so let your opponent deal with it, and hope the rain is stopped by the time it's your turn. So I've lost the toss, and my opponent opted to start on defense. Each team now sets up their players, with the defense going first. This is a huge topic all by itself, so we're going to have to save it for another time. And with that, it's finally time to kick off. If you're on defense, you always want to aim your kick dead center. The game helpfully puts a little blue X in the right square to click on. Where the ball actually lands is very much random, and you just want to give it the best chance of staying on the field. If you miss the pitch completely, that's a touchback, and your opponent can just give the ball to whoever he wants without rolling any dice. That's still going to happen sometimes, but it's really annoying, and you'll want to minimize the chances of it. And the game begins with, whoops, not quite. Every kickoff comes with a kickoff event. The most common is changing weather, which, unless it's currently raining or something, usually won't have too much of an effect. Sometimes you or your opponent, or both, will get a free reroll. This is influenced by the cheerleaders and assistant coaches that I told you not to buy in the video before this one. Free rerolls are nice, of course, but they aren't really free. Coaches and cheerleaders increase your team value, and they don't do enough to justify that. Some events let you or your opponent move your players around. A blitz is kind of like a free turn for the defense, which can be really difficult to recover from. Perfect defense lets you rearrange all your players, which is just as bad for the offense in the right circumstances. A quick snap lets the offense move everyone one square each, and a high kick lets them move one player right to where the ball is going to land. And then things get violent. Each coach can get a free bribe from Get the Ref. A riot will randomly add or subtract one turn from the game. Sometimes this is meaningless, and sometimes it gives you a totally undeserved chance to score. A pitch invasion will randomly stun some of the players on the field. This can be very one-sided, and we've all seen pictures where one entire team was stunned and the other was completely untouched. Finally, there is the infamous thrown rock. Some jerk in the stands will throw a rock at one of your players on the field. This can injure or even kill your best player, and there's not much you can do about it. That's Blood Bowl. With the kickoff event resolved, the ball falls to the ground, and it's finally time for a cliffhanger ending. Today has been a grab bag of things you'll need to get a game started, and next time we'll actually play this game. We'll cover basic formations and strategies for both offense and defense, and see how they work in the context of a match. Until then, you'll just have to hope that the good guys win this one.